Hello and welcome to Hospitality 360 Africa. On our interview series program, one-to-one with Mr. Hurricane, we are going to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the hospitality industry here in Nigeria. Joining us today to discuss this is a chartered accountant and businessman. He is the owner of the Maranatha Hotel Owerri, the capital city of Imo State here in Nigeria. He is no other than Dr. Etofolam Osuji. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is a difficult time for the world at large, and difficult and very, very unprecedented for the hospitality industry in Nigeria, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely nobody, no business school has ever thought about this kind of calamity. Nobody has ever imagined that such a thing is possible. If it were so, people would have planned against it. This has caught virtually all governments totally unawares. And how do you address this issue? There's economic aspect, there's health aspect, there is the national security aspect. So much is involved in this pandemic that we're just getting to feel the early stages of it. Because going further down the lane, we are going to enter into uncharted territories, and you can't just foretell what you're going to see in those areas.
What's the lockdown like in your area? Here in Abuja, the lockdown is total lockdown. We've been at home here for past 3 weeks. Quite tough, isn't it?
Very, very tough. A people that are very versatile, people that are very mobile, clamping down individuals at home without even understanding what are we fighting against. How do you, it's not a question of washing your hands with soap and all that, that is the issue. Social spacing and all that, distancing and all that is not the issue. There is more to this. One, the government has to do quite a lot of educating the public. Because in Abuja, like in Owerri here, there's still some semblance of movements. However, go down to the villages where the populace reside. They don't believe that they know what the people are talking about. People still drink together, people still play together, people still move around together. There is a lot of need for government to step in and inform the people that there is a crisis going on in the land, and people should take absolute precaution. That is lacking, and that engagement needs to be held very soon. In the hotel industry here, we've been closed down for quite some 3 weeks now. No guests, no mobility, nothing. And we thrive on tourism. The moment the planes were grounded, the moment road transport was grounded, we knew we had a problem in our hands. Massive problem.
That brings me to the question. Difficult is it? You have, your hotel is totally locked down at the moment. Am I correct?
Absolutely locked down.
And the staff?
The staff, you can't keep the staff doing nothing. They're here to serve the guests. And if there are no guests, you just have to ask most of the staff to stay at home and make sure that the facility is being looked after. Where there are repairs, this is the best time to carry out the repairs. Where there are fumigation, this is the best time to do it. But when apart from that, nothing whatsoever is happening in the hotel industry.
You know, unemployment is hitting the nation all across the world. People are crying of unemployment. The hospitality industry is badly hit, and people are being redundant at the moment. It's visible here with speaking to the managing director of a hotel, confirming that all the staffs are basically at home at the moment. If I may ask, Dr. Osuji, how did you disengage them? Was there any formal kind of discussions, like information telling them, look, you are either laid off or you are furloughed? Is it a temporary layoff thing or a permanent layoff thing? How did you communicate it to them?
No, as a management practitioner,
yeah,
laying out of staff is always the last option.
Okay.
However, there is need to inform the staff what is happening. Obviously, they know, because the traffic of vehicles coming to the hotel has totally diminished. In short, it's not there. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have this crisis. How do we handle it? On the one hand, I can pay you off. On the other hand, you weather the storm with us, because if there is no inflow of cash, there should not be any outflow of cash.
Okay.
It is not the responsibility of the company to determine what comes in. But we are here to make sure we serve our guests. And there is no guest to serve. How can we end the revenue? It's been a very, very painful decision. And what we have done in our own situation is think outside the box. What are those services that we render that does not need accommodation? Like outdoor servicing, preparing food and giving it to our guests in their various homes, preparing pastry products and supplying it to them. The whole place is just down and down and down. So we are thinking outside the box. How do we retain staff? You make sure you engage them. They understand what is happening, primarily from their own point of view of those earning income by way of salary. Two, they also have responsibility of people depending on them to use that salary to feed their children, to feed their parents. There is quite a lot of challenge. And I didn't learn this in any business school. I didn't even understand that such a thing is possible. But we are going to cope with it. I am a little bit perturbed because it is not this health aspect that is the issue. The economic aspect has not even been considered. I want the central bank to take a position with regard to this. Some hotels have facilities with the banks. Now, they depend on guests to pay in money to service those facilities. The banks on their own are receiving cash. They are not dispensing cash. If you want cash from the bank, go to the ATM. And it carries along with it the risk of attack. There are quite a lot of challenges that nobody has been able to define, nobody has been able to interrogate. And it is a big, major challenge. Nobody communicates with the populace. Business, except even the Christian or Muslims, don't come to church, don't come to the mosque. That doesn't end it there. People have spiritual needs. How do they get it done?
Before we go into the financial part of it and the banking part of it, I'm still very curious about the employees. Difficult to let your employees go, isn't it?
Yes. Very difficult.
And most of them, definitely there's no salary being paid to them at the moment. So they are either fully laid off or they are on temporary layoff.
Actually, they are on temporary layoff.
Okay.
And because they ask them to come, they have to come and pay transport to come to work. So you stop that outflow from their resources. Please stay at home. If there is need for you, we either send a vehicle to pick you up or we find a way to get you here. But don't go out of your way to come here doing nothing, loitering, and then at the end of the day, you have to take yourself back home. Stay home. Certainly, by God's grace, we'll have the capacity to pay at least 25 to 50% of the salary at the end of the month. But thereafter, how do we proceed? It's a major, major challenge.
And the Maranatha Suites is a 54-room hotel. Am I correct?
Yes, very correct, sir.
And how many staff do you have in total?
We have 53 staff made up of management, that's the admin staff, and then direct level staff. Yes.
And the 53 staff, they are all on temporary layoff, or are there some that you have to?
No, there are some that are. The security men are here. The porter is here. The front office staff, at least 2 of them are here. The pastry staff, full complement, are still there working. But those in the kitchen, we brought them down only to one a day. And the bar, the swimming pool sections are all shut down because nobody's coming to swim, nobody's coming to drink.
Okay.
So there's no need keeping them. And then the maintenance guy is around here making sure that all the equipment are being serviced at this period in time.
Let's go into the economics of it all. The Central Bank of Nigeria is promising a lot. So far, 120 billion naira is being earmarked as stimulus package to the Nigerian economy. Many say this is a far cry from what is needed to boost the economy back. It is quite said that about $50 billion will be required to get Nigeria out of the present quagmire. With the 120 billion naira so far, released by the federal government to ease the stress, to ease the economy. What do you think about that? How far could that go? And do you think that the hospitality industry has been taken into consideration in this stimulus package?
You see, the choice of words is what I'm trying to articulate. When you say stimulus package, stimulus is to kickstart something. Currently, people are hiding. There's nothing to kickstart. Now, I want you to understand one basic thing. I'm a chartered accountant. We have not defined the cost. So, preferring that we're going to use $120 million, 120 billion naira to pursue an issue when you don't know the cost, you first and foremost identify the cost. What is involved? Is it to the hospitality industry? Is it to the airlines? Which sector are we looking at? They have not defined any of those parameters. For the hospitality industry, they trade on tourism. And tourism trades on mobility from point A to point B. All the airlines are grounded, and most of them are on wait lists. It therefore presupposes that they cannot operate. Even if you ask them, go back on air today, the certification will be of virtually all the airlines to make sure that they are airworthy. Two, all the crew have to be taken care of. You've not talked about the recipients of the hospitality industry, which is the hotels. The hotels, as far as we are concerned, comprises the high grade and the low grade. Now, I will give you an instance in Owerri. There's no hotel that's open. The first time we got to know about it, that somebody came into Owerri in a hotel, slept and left, and back to Abuja and died. It created so much fear that at the end of it all, the results coming out now indicate that the man didn't die from COVID-19. He had already pre-existing conditions that necessitated him kicking the bucket at this particular point in time. He had nothing to do. But the rumor virtually crippled the remaining guests that were in the hotel. Everybody vanished. Now, how do you now get back to the hotel? Most hotels have facilities with banks. Now, the bank has given this money under the understanding that on a monthly basis, you pay some of money to them. Now the money is not coming in. Now, you can't tell the bank to keep quiet. They are interested in their money. Now, the central bank, the function of the central bank is to make sure that there's liquidity in the economy, to manage the liquidity. Now, the central bank is now seeing a situation that they didn't even know how to handle. It is good to come to the air to say, I'm providing 120 billion naira. This 120 billion, is it a gift? Is it a package? What is it? Who is going to receive it? Is it to the hotel industry? I don't need their money. What I need is the money that will be used to pay back the banks. It therefore means that you are now telling the banks, write off this interest facility for this period of time. We, central bank, will underwrite you. Because the money is not coming to the hospitality industry, the hotels. It will go to the bank who finance these things. Now, honestly, I don't see any organization having the capacity now to pay any money.
Well,
Government really must sit down and think.
The 120 billion naira palliative, 50 billion out of this money was earmarked by the CBN to Nasal Microfinance Bank as a form of credit, where small businesses and medium scale businesses like yours can actually draw from. Have you been able to access this facility from Nasal Microfinance Bank?
We have not made any effort whatsoever to access this facility, because one, we need to understand what is involved. One of the principles in business is that if you're in a hole, you stop digging. Until you understand where you are at, you don't make any venture to start digging, because whatever facility you take, certainly will be repaid for in the nearest future. How do you factor that into your cash flow? I am a pragmatist, and I want to make sure that I understand where the central bank is coming from, what is their vision. They have not been able to engage the end users. Okay. And they cannot engage the end users in Abuja. They go to Calabar, they come to Owerri, they go to Lagos, they go to Ibadan, or wherever hotels are situated, and get the owners of these hotels to understand, or put us on webcam and say, come to this place, let us discuss these issues. People are going to key in. Like you're engaging me now, there's more problem that is now evident that is scaring even people like me. I'm a member of the National Institute. Strategies are key. Now, we're looking at the health concern, which is scaring quite a lot of people. Okay. In Nigeria now, apart from this idea of wash your hands, don't shake your hand, don't shake with people, this social spacing and all that. Yeah. Distance yourself from all that. Apart from that, what other things can we do to help ourselves? What did the Chinese do that they're coming back to work? Okay. What actually did they do? Information is that they drink hot water 3 times a day or 4 times a day. They take hot bath. They inhale hot, what do they call it? This double year or whatever they call it in anti-malaria or something. Yeah. We are not talking about that in Nigeria. Everybody is scared silly. You can't sit in your room, you go to the parlor, you go to the kitchen, you go to the student's room, you come back and watch television. We're not made that way.
I'm very curious on the stimulus package. You know, the stimulus package we just discussed about 120 billion naira is actually not for the hospitality industry alone. It's actually for the entire economy, which is actually a piecemeal from what is actually required to boost the economy. This money, these palliatives are supposed to be stimulus packages to enable organizations like yours continue to pay salaries, continue to meet up with their expenditures. But I'm very curious about this. Dr. Osuji, is there any form of communications from the CBN to small businesses like yours on moratorium for your debt? Any moratorium for outstanding payments and debt from organizations like yours?
No, there has not been any communication from the CBN to my bankers, to me, and my bankers and myself. Okay. It is totally lacking. So we have energy consumption. Some days ago, we learned that the energy providers might give us waiver for 3 months without payment. We've not had anything from that. There are so many, there's no engagement whatsoever. Everybody's in his own silos, and it is not helping matters.
And apart from the federal government, your state government, for example, you're an Imo state. What's the state government doing about stimulus package for the state businesses?
Strangely enough, last week, some of the hotels near my facility, were raided by people from the government, the Board of Internal Revenue.
Okay.
Under this lockdown, that they are owing taxes. So you can't be raiding people and talking about stimulus. When you're trying to, because the hotel industry is the only industry, apart from government, that employs the highest labor force in Imo State. There's no other major labor employer than the hotel industry.
That is in Imo State.
In Imo State, they don't have any other. They don't have industries. It's just hotels everywhere.
Yeah.
And we contribute our quota towards the budget of the state. Now, if you're going to create that enabling environment, you need to know them. You need to come close to them and engage them. This is not the time to begin to pursue them for tax, locking their gates, bringing more pool to raid hotels. This is time for serious thinking.
I'm very aware of that. That a couple of days ago, about 15 hotels were actually sealed up by the State Internal Revenue Service.
Exactly.
Was the Maranatha part of those sealed up?
No. As a chartered accountant, you know, I'm a tax consultant also, so we don't want to have any problem with government. We pay our tax as and when due, because we don't want to really have any problem with them.
I spoke to a couple of hotel general managers that were involved. Most of them actually expressed their disappointment over the issue. And I also spoke to the State Internal Revenue Service chairman. And according to him, these hotels were actually defaulting and they had a court order to seal the hotel. Though this is not the right time to do that, but it was actually as a result of a court order, he said.
Well, I'm a practitioner in Imo State.
Okay.
And we've had court orders in Imo State that makes you want to weep for this country. You can procure any court order from any magistrate in Imo State. And they will tell you, you have records to show that they have served you. But there's no evidence that you got those services. I don't want to go into that aspect. What I just want to state is that there is more that the government needs to do to help the industry. If they provide employment facilities for the indigenous of the state, what role is the government playing to make sure that there is enough to keep these industries going, enough infrastructures established for them to expand the scope of their business, so that you get more revenue from them? We have a long way to go, my brother. We have a long way to go.
While the world is trying to make sense out of the entire pandemic, the social distancing, the stay at home, the lockdown, we definitely know this. We have a long way to a final solution, which is the vaccine. Without the vaccine, social gathering, large meetings, large group of gatherings will be virtually impossible. In a couple of days' time or a couple of weeks' time, the world economy will definitely open up. Because if it doesn't open up, then the world should be bracing up for a bigger crisis. Economies are grounding. The United States is at the grand stage at the moment. The world is going to open up. And when the world opens up, one thing is very certain: our world will never be the same again. With so much lives lost, so much people in grief, our world will never, ever be the same again. Businesses will never be the same. Without the vaccine, how are we going to move around? Travel will become a problem because airlines, how are they going to practice social distancing with people on air for 8 hours, 10 hours, traveling from one point to another? How are they going to practice this social distancing in the airlines? And without travel, the hospitality industry is in a big mess. You come to the hotel industry. When this is over, which I hope in the next couple of weeks it should be over, how is the hotel industry going to be? How is it going to manage? What's going to be the new normal? When I mean new normal, I'm asking check-ins, check-outs, reservations. We're looking at housekeeping. We're looking at room service. Let me hear from you what you think about the new normal. What's it going to be like for the hotel industry?
It's been an area we've been thinking within our staff. First and foremost, cleanliness, basic hygiene must be upheld. As the person is coming in, you give him the first treatment, wash your hand thoroughly, get the hand sanitizer, and then the people in the room, you must, one, make sure that the rooms are well ventilated. Two, you must fumigate every room at least once a week. Three, you must make sure that The people that are going to serve these guests, the restaurant people, the bar people, must maintain that social distancing with all the necessary facilities in place. The face mask must be there, and the mode of payment again still has to do with card. Very rarely do we accept cash, but when they do come, after collecting cash, you must ensure you wash your hands. Those things are the fundamentals. The next thing to do now is, how do we certify the guests? It's a little bit intrusive, but we now have mandated that once guests start coming in, we must body temperature them. First line indicator whether somebody is sick or not. We must get it done and document it on their file. We must make sure that it's available when we suspect. We just immediately escalate to those in authority. We have this guest, this is our suspicion, check if there's no problem, no, it is okay. But we must safeguard our staff, safeguard other guests. Because
is it not a bit worrisome first that the guests themselves will be scared of the hotel staffs, and the hotel staffs will be scared of the guests? So yes, here we have a situation where the guests are not checked, nobody is tested, the staffs are not tested, because in Nigeria there's very little testing going on at the moment, and I don't see much testing going on in the near future. What do you think? How do you think this is going to affect the total number of guests you expect in your hotel going forward after the lockdown?
Yeah, that if you were expecting on a hypothetical basis 80% room occupancy, in the next 3, 4, 5 months, up to 6 months, you might expect between 20 to 28%, not up to 30%. Okay. You have 30%, you'll be very happy with yourself. Now, this goes to show that it has impacted the hospitality industry adversely. They are the first that has been hit hard by this scenario. Now, thereafter, you try to find out what other thing you can engage yourself in to make sure that cash comes into the business. Because the banks are not going to allow you 6 months moratorium, except the central banks give them 6 months moratorium.
Absolutely.
So it has to be a national policy. Say, look, this is the only thing that is thriving in Imo State, hospitality industry. How do we come to their aid? And engage the practitioners of the hospitality industry and come to a workable solution such that the central bank will back up this thing. However, I'm a pragmatist. I went to Kuru with an MNI. You cannot be talking about what the central bank will do when oil, crude oil, is selling for $20. It will impact the capacity to pay. When you look at the scenario that is coming up, in the next 3 to 6 months, the capacity of the hotel, the occupancy will be as low as 20% and as high as 28%. Too. Yeah. Now, you also find out that if you say the central bank should intervene with palliatives, the central bank cannot perform above their capacity. And the capacity of the central bank is dependent on the inflow of resources into the country. First, our foreign reserves are not up to $5 million. Now, how do you take care of this gigantic problem with oil going for $20 per barrel?
Look at the new normal for the hotel industry. Okay. I am very curious because I take myself as an example. I'm a traveler. I do travel a lot, and I do travel to the city of Owerri. Yes. Definitely my travels will reduce. Conferences and meetings will reduce drastically. Most organizations will prefer to have their meetings in virtual conference halls like this, Zooms, and many other platforms. So we should be expecting that in the coming months after the lockdown, that most of your conference rooms will be vacant for a long time. Now, this is as a result of people not being confident about travel. But for some reason, some must travel. you must travel for a particular purpose. And when they travel, they most likely will stay in a hotel. Now, coming into a hotel, I know that most organizations, most big organizations, big hotels chains in the world have automated system from their reservations, which you can do online. Some you can do your check-in without seeing any guests, at the hotel, and you can actually go in and go out within a day without seeing anybody in the hotel. This is automated and for customer comfort. But however, in small hotels like yours, you don't have the luxury of this automated system. So guests must come in, they must meet the staff at the reception. After meeting the staff at the reception, they will check into their rooms. Most of them paying for a hotel room means you pay for the services, which includes your room service and your housekeeping. How are you going to manage that? Because knowing the spread of this virus, the coronavirus, it's about contact. So somebody talks within a 1 meter to 1.5 meter from you, you are at risk of contacting the virus if the person has it. So how are you going to manage with your staff? Going into the rooms to clean the rooms, going to the rooms to serve the guests. This is the new normal we should be expecting in the next coming days when the lockdown is over. How are you going to manage that? I'm very curious, Dr. Osuji.
Well, I wanted to actually correct something. You see, the automated system, I do believe, does not operate in Nigeria. Even like on Nuka Hilton, Abuja, you still see people to physically check you in. Now, abroad, yes, you can go that route. However, in Nigeria, we will try as much as is humanly possible to make sure that there's minimum contact with guests. And those contacts must be right, i.e. check-in. It is expected by the regulatory authorities that in checking in, you must get all the data of the guests by filling in the necessary forms and all that, so that you can, the next day or thereabout, send it to the security services. Now, absolutely. Once these things are documented, you give it to them, they will sign, you key it into your database. Taking into the room must be a room that has been prepared. Most air conditioners actually in Nigeria have the hot temperature also in them, but people use air conditioners for cooling. If you put a room temperature, instead of 18, you put it at 32, the room will be very, very warm. So by the time the person comes in, he lowers it to 18 degrees centigrade to bring it to a normal condition. But before coming in, the heat in the room would have taken care of any virus, if any, that will be in that environment. We've thought through these processes, cost is going to rise. And there are no budgets for these costs. These are costs to maintain your business, to be in business. Because if you're not in business, you're virtually liquidated. So to be in business, there are some essential costs that will be taken care of. Now, that is where the government has to do with the distribution companies. How do they mitigate to these hostile industries? How do we come to help them? By giving them waivers? How do we meet their needs on a monthly basis to be able to remain viable so that Nigeria Regulatory Commission can also certify them? Government has to give some palliatives. But government on its own hand doesn't have the capacity. So we have a challenge. The challenge is understanding the problem, taking clear options that are available to us, and then working towards those solutions. But now the depth of the problem, we've not even touched the surface.
How are you going to do with housekeeping, and how are you going to manage with room service?
One of the guiding principles in Maranatha is that if you come in, we make sure that we heat the room before you check in. And once you check in, you bring the temperature to your own basic requirement. In the restaurants have already been medically certified. They normally go through 6 months medical certification. to show that they are healthy. Now, they will ensure that basic hygiene is observed at that level. Basic hygiene, monitored basic hygiene. You must wash your hands thoroughly before you serve anybody.
And will you be providing masks for these employees going to do?
Yes, we have masks every day.
Okay.
We have masks every day.
That's going to be quite expensive to have. That's going to be quite expensive to have the mask because masks are not supposed to be used more than once. That's going to be expensive for the hotel, isn't it?
Yes, fortunately we had these masks earlier. We bought them not in anticipation of anything, but when they want to fumigate, we want to make sure that our staff are fully masked. That was when we purchased them. But we are running low on it. Two, we have water and soap, so that is not a problem. The cost of sanitizers have risen astronomically, but we can't do without because we don't want a regulator coming in here that those things are not in place. So we have them already in place. So it's going to cost us more to resupply our stock. But let's
talk about travel. Without travel, there is no hospitality. Travel is the pivot to every hospitality business. How do you think airlines are going to manage going forward with the social distancing thing? Because I can't imagine an 11 hours, 9 hours flight wearing masks all through. How do you think the airlines are going to manage?
I think
are they going to practice social distancing inside the plane?
Yeah, when you travel British Air, they normally fumigate the plane once they take off.
Okay.
Now, I do believe that most airlines in Nigeria will adopt that policy. And two, at checking in, they will not create a new column whereby they check your body temperature. It's not only for arrival that they do check. As you're going in, I was built to travel to Lagos. But when I remember that airlines are a pressurized atmosphere, and I analyzed it, I said, I don't want to take this risk. I don't know who is the next passenger with me. Maybe he just came back from London and we're sharing a business class seat. I don't want to take that. I canceled my flight. Canceled the next 2 days, all planes were grounded. Yeah. So airlines will go a little bit further in putting certain controls in place. And that is the only way out of this scenario for the airlines.
Whatever measures that's going to be taken, I see a very, very unprecedented tough times ahead for the travel industry, because I can't imagine flying from here to London or from here to Owerri, sitting just 30 centimeters away from me is someone I don't know his medical history. Exactly. He doesn't know my medical history. So it's going to be difficult, I think.
I think everybody's agreeing to the fact that even traveling to London or US is no longer essential. It might be important but not urgent. It can be deferred to next year.
Okay, and what about the local travels? Are you ready to travel from Abuja? Are you ready to travel from Owerri to Abuja on a flight at this moment?
Actually, I was discussing with my wife. It's better for me to hire a vehicle, pay for the seats that I use in paying for business class in Owerri to Lagos, take the whole vehicle over myself. We are two, and we go to Lagos 8 hours. Enjoy our ride.
So that means you see an increase in road transportation, isn't it?
Exactly. That is the safest now, health-wise. Time-wise, go by flight, but health-wise, you go by road because it is maybe you and your son and the driver, and you move to Lagos. 8 hours.
How many can afford the luxury of private car travels in Nigeria?
It's just that as one ages, you don't need to drive long distances. I think that's the best for me.
But most clients coming to your hotel come in different ages, and they have to travel for business, for leisure, for For different reasons, they must travel. So I see a very difficult time for the tourism industry and a very, very tough time for the hospitality industry. I expect occupancy to be at its lowest for the next couple of months, because without vaccination, the industry will still face the issue of consumer confidence. People will be scared to travel.
And even that vaccination, the information has not been decimated that this vaccination is going to be a cure. Because people have the notion that vaccination, there's more to it than meets the eye.
Well, I want to believe there are different information flying left and right and left, and that is expected
exactly
in such a pandemic. But the truth there is, vaccination is the only solution for life to go back to normal, be it in America,
do you have vaccination for flu?
Come again, sir?
Do you have vaccination for flu in Nigeria? We use the native method. Put yourself under the blanket. No, honestly, yeah. I'm personally, I'm scared of vaccination. I don't want to bring in. You vaccinate with the substance into a human being. Now become a carrier. Educated as I am, I'm still a little bit worried.
Apprehensive. Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that. Dr. Osuji, what will you be expecting from the federal government, and what will be your expectations from your state government?
Actually, not expecting much, because I know that if there is nothing in the person that is naked, you cannot bring out money from his pocket because he's not having any clothes on. The government is having serious challenges. The resources available to the government is totally minimized. The foreign reserve we have is not capable of handling imports for more than 3 months. So where are they going to get these resources from? We're a monoproduct country. And the level of corruption in Nigeria will not even allow the palliatives to reach where it's supposed to be. So why create the opportunity for people to scale? I will do my very best to maintain this facility so that at the end of this pandemic, it will still remain a going concern. But for now, I'm being very obvious and objective to you. I don't expect much from government.
And what message will you have for your employees at home?
To my employees at home, I've told them that we will enjoy together, we will suffer together. It is not that they're going to suffer and the company will be enjoying. Whatever resources that's available to us, even if it is on a pro rata basis, we'll make available to them, because they are also responsible for the other people in their life chain. We will come to meet them at some point of their need. And God helping us bounce back stronger.
And do you see us getting out of all this at all, or any soon?
I have no fear. At the end of it all, as a Christian, I trust that God will see us through. And that is the best time to go to God.
And Dr. Osuji ends it up with his faith. As a Christian, you have no other option but to what?
It's only faith. God that can save this nation.
We are going to draw the curtains. It's been nice talking to you, Dr. Osuji.
Pleasure is mine here.
I remain your host, Mr. Hurricane Emeka Ihumeze. Thank you for being on my program, One-to-One with Mr. Hurricane.